Yeah. Okay. So this is the January meeting of Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission. Uh, and this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to call the roll, demonstrating that we have even better than quorum because Carolyn is here. I know. Well, don't ever do that. Um, uh, Carolyn Mish. Um, I'll give you a minute. So I will call the roll. Counselor Nabad,
Present.
Counselor Stratton,
Present.
uh, Carolyn Mish,
Present.
Louis Hasbrook,
Present.
Eric Winkler,
Present.
Angie Gregory,
Present.
uh, Richard Parasolidi,
Present.
and Rachel Flynn Kasuba.
Present.
Wow. So we've actually got a good turnout. So as you guys will know, this is a fairly light formal agenda, and I wanted to set time to have a kind of a priorities setting discussion. Um, so I'm going to open to public comment, but I did want to say that if you're the public and you are wanting to participate in this discussion of what our priorities should be, you can save that comment for that discussion, which is coming up. Um, and this is priorities for this year that we should be thinking about. So if there are other comments that the public would like to make, it is now open. And I guess I'll open it to those in the room first. That could be you. Oh, I think we need a microphone.
Hello, I'm Helen Seidler. I am live in Ward 2, and I wanted to sit in on today's meeting because I'm interested in hearing you talk about your priorities and ideas for what's coming up this next year. And I have two things to say. One is that I hope the commission has more of a presence in the city of Northampton in the sense of doing some education and outreach and just highlighting the issues that you're concerned about. That is the purpose of this commission, to help us reach our goals of the Regeneration and Resilience Program from 2021. So education and outreach and more of a presence in the community. Specifically, there are two items that I have a personal interest in, and I think maybe I'm not alone in the community. One of them has to do with food waste, and it's not a requirement in Northampton that households separate their food waste from their trash. And that means a significant percentage of our trash on the Northampton website, city website, something like 15 years ago, so it's not an up-to-date statistic, but something like 14% of solid waste is food waste. And that, when it's not separated, of course, goes into landfills and produces methane, which may not be trapped, and so forth. So it's a waste on several levels, and it contributes to the greenhouse gas emission problem we're dealing with. So I'm just wondering, couldn't the city of Northampton be a little more forceful on this question of separating food waste from regular household trash? And I know there is a requirement for businesses and restaurants that produce a certain fairly large volume, but of food waste, they cannot put that in their trash. But for the rest of us, we can. And if you want to separate your food waste separately, you have to pay to do that. Pay more than just the regular trash collection. So anyway, I think there's an opportunity to do something with that particular issue. And the other issue, which I know you've heard about, but I'll just bring it up anyway, has to do with landscape equipment that's used and um, uh, gas-generated blowers and lawnmowers and all of that. Some of them are old enough to be using two-cycle engines, very polluting, very noisy. There's a whole approach to landscape management that you don't really see very much unless people are paying a landscaper good money to follow sort of current thinking about what to do with leaves and lawns and how to support biodiversity and local insects and all of that. So I think there's a conversation with the landscape companies about moving in the right direction. And this would be a great topic. I know there is a pollinator subcommittee that, could be part of that. So I just wanted to throw those two ideas out for your deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Denise Lillo is on Zoom.
Okay, hi, everybody. Thank you for Happy New Year, and thank you for an opportunity to comment. I hope this will go okay. I just had cataract surgery and I'm kind of one-eyed, so if I stumble a little bit trying to read, I apologize. But I wanted to speak to the climate challenges facing us all, including the city of Northampton. The state of Massachusetts is facing challenges to meeting its ambitious but necessary carbon emission reduction goals, including federal obstructions to wind energy progress. At the state level, we anticipate that some version of House Bill 4744, which was submitted late in the last part of the session by Representative Mark Cusack, will resurface in the legislature this term. That bill included delaying requirements to meet the state's 2030 carbon reduction goals and a reduction in renewable portfolio standards for utilities. The Mothers Out Front Northampton chapter that I coordinate and other members of the Northampton Climate Emergency Coalition will actively monitor legislative initiatives. We will identify and present at these NESC meetings opportunities for this group to review resolutions and ordinances and then forward them to the City Council for adoption. This avenue has worked well in the past. It's an opportunity for broader citizen engagement and discussion with Commission members. The Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission appropriately serves as a conduit between citizens concerned with energy and sustainability issues and the City Council and the Mayor's office. So we look forward to ongoing collaborations with you, and I look forward to the discussion about where you'd like to go. Thank you.
And Tina is also on Zoom, and I just wanted to say, because I know you came in a few seconds later, that if you want to participate in
We can't hear
Can you
you,
hear?
Ben. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Sorry. What I was going to say, Tina, is if your comment is about or suggesting priorities for 2026 for this commission, you could save your comment to participate in that discussion, but otherwise, feel free to speak now.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I would love the commission's involvement. Cindy Fand, who was instrumental in getting the Eversource grant that helped put on the Get Energy Smart Fair in September. She and I have reconvened recently, and we are trying to figure out ways to do a home energy tour, a business clean energy tour, and do educational events to help spend the rest of the grant money, which is needs to be spent by the end of 2026, and there's still quite a bit left. And we're open to comments, suggestions, and any help at all. So I don't know if that could be a priority of the commission, but we would certainly welcome it, and we'll definitely update the committee as we get going a little bit more into this new year. So I just wanted to kind of quickly throw that in there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments not related to agenda items. Okay,
We just had one person join.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, just joined.
but no hand raised. Oh, he's in the waiting room still.
I let him in, but it's taking a while.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, we can go to our uh, first item. Actually, did you send minutes out?
I did a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. So, well, not everybody who's on the commission now would have gotten them because these are brand new. But I think we have enough to vote on the minutes anyway. Does anyone want to discuss the minutes that were sent out? Does anyone want to make a motion relating to the minutes?
Move approval?
Second.
Uh, motion by Carolyn Mish, second by Angie Gregory. Any discussion? No. Okay, I will call the roll. And I guess I'll include you guys anyway, even though you wouldn't have seen them. Yeah. So Katie Deppen,
Yes.
Louis Hasbrook,
Yes.
Angie Gregory,
Yes.
Eric Winkler,
Abstain.
Rachel Flynn Kasuba,
Yes.
Richard Parasolidi,
Abstain, please.
me, yes. And Chris Stratton,
I'm going to abstain. I haven't seen him.
right, of course. And Gwen Nabad.
Abstain.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Carolyn. How many is that? Anyway, a majority agreed and the rest abstained, so the minutes are passed.
Also, just clarify, when, for voting on minutes, you're voting it to accept it as part of the record. So if you weren't there, it's okay. You can still accept it as part of the record. So just for.
Yeah, you've pointed that out before, and I always forget, even though you say it many times. Okay, so our next agenda item is one I put on the agenda, and I'll just explain the reason that I wanted to do this is in the past, when I was an appointed member of the commission, I know that a number of members were frustrated that they didn't feel like they had as much of an ability to set the agenda, and so they were being very reactive. And a lot of them were, very good thinkers, and they wanted to be more proactive. And then in this past year, when I've been involved with creating the agendas, we put a call out to members for agenda items. Sometimes we get a few, but it's often being generated by whatever CAPA is working on. And that seems, again, to put the commission in the position of being reactive. And I think to some degree, the idea of the commission is to provide advice and guidance to the executive branch, essentially, as to on these subjects. So I thought this would be a good chance to at least start that conversation. It's not like we can't do it again, but at least to start out by saying, well, what is the direction the community would want us to go that maybe we haven't thought about? So I can tell you things that I have in mind, but I'd like to just open it to any. I was trying to just see my screen. So I'd like to just open it up to first to commissioners and then to the public to just share ideas. Eric?
Yeah, one thing that I would like to see happen this sort of year is some more transparency about the community choice aggregation. I've mentioned this before, and I think it's incumbent upon the commission and the city to provide some transparency around things like enrollment numbers, and dollars saved relative to default rates, as well as to provide some kind of insight into ways that the city can optimize having a sort of more personal load serving entity, and clarify what additional products can be utilized within the community choice aggregation for end use customers. Things like demand response, something different than what Grid is currently offering for load control. So that's my request, at least at this point.
Okay, I think that the general transparency, taking the data, publishing it somewhere, that's something we should be able to do. I do get a report from First Point, the company that has that contract, every month, or every 2 months or whatever it is. So that's something, it shouldn't be too hard to put that out. The second thing you're talking about is much more complicated. You know, something more involved than say community or what's it called, connected solutions, which is the utility program for demand response, which is very, very minimal. I am in discussions with a company, very, very preliminary, about the idea of creating some sort of virtual power plant, which would basically be to try and pool members. It doesn't necessarily have to be through community choice aggregation, right? It can just be however you get people, but if this is a list, that might be a place to start. And talking about opt-in tiers. So right now, Valley Green Energy has basic, standard, and 100% green, which is, purchasing renewable energy credits. You could imagine a fourth tier, which is a VPP tier, and that you'd
let's set aside. I mean, you don't want to get started on this discussion this way. I mean, I can get pretty detailed on what I'm thinking, and I'd like to put that as an agenda item as well as a task for the staff that serves the commission to provide some transparency in terms of products and services. I mean, we can add that to an agenda item and talk about how the city can do it. We can talk about it how residential customers can do it, and maybe better than what's currently available.
Almost certainly, that's true. The thing I would add is that while we are connected to Valley Green Energy Working Group actually has public meetings as well that are posted on the city website, and that people can attend those and ask for those kinds of specific things through VGE, which is this cooperative agreement between the three communities. Next, anybody else have thoughts?
If I can just kind of go off of that. So I think, and pardon me for not completely understanding all of this. Some of the issues that I've encountered is people who rely on LIHEAP, and they get paid. The utilities, the gas utility or the electric utility gets paid, but then they don't credit that to the customer who's buying into the solar. So, so if someone is using, some kind of a solar program along with the National Grid account, for example, sometimes LIHEAP will pay too much on the heating bill, and then the Eversource will cover the cost of the electric bill that's left over. So people will end up with a credit on National Grid. However, it doesn't translate over to the solar bill. And I'm wondering how
how some of the payments for some of these aggregate energy type programs transfer from fuel assistance and how they can be able to receive payment or um, to make solar accessible for low income people.
I think I'm confused about kind of the structure of what exactly we're trying to do, but definitely as an
Okay.
agenda item to say let's figure out what's going on with LIHEAP and how that relates to these
Okay.
things, and maybe creating some sort of outreach program
Sure.
or coordination with Grid and Eversource to take
Yes.
care of low income
Right.
folks. That seems like a pretty good.
If it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fascinating. I think if there were a way you could get us sort of some anonymized bills that showed the problem, I think that would help people here understand what the issue
Exactly.
is, because
Okay.
I think it's outside of a lot of
Right.
familiarity for us. But I know you've worked
Sure.
in that area a lot.
Right. Thank you.
Rachel.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks for putting this on the agenda. Nice to be able to have the open discussion. I'd say the things on my mind these days are around kind of scale and impact. And so, as I think about all the work that mostly Ben and Gabi, you all have done over the last year, it's been incredibly efficient in terms of looking at the full suite of town buildings and what the sort of town is developing and creating a plan for that. And I wonder if now that that's in, fairly good working order, if there's sort of a double click into, okay, within the town, public and private and community members, what is the second biggest area to tackle? Is that businesses and their, total emissions and use there that we could partner with? Is it, food waste, as the woman at the top of the call was saying? Or what are those other sort of 2 or 3 big categories that we can say from a total impact that everybody's living in, how do we tackle that next step of things? I don't know what the answer is, but sort of I think going through that process might be helpful as we think about total scale. And then on the impact side, somewhat related, right? I think all the work that this commission and you guys have done to sort of lay out the plan for an already progressive town to come up with such good targets and execution mechanisms for delivering on those. Is there a way to also leverage that for other towns, cities, states, sort of showcase, and maybe this is back to the marketing piece of it, showcase a little bit more of the work that's been done such that other people can have a off the shelf type approach when they have fewer resources. And related, the last one, but related to total impact, is I feel like there's something around potential for increasing Northampton's kind of clean tech innovation potential, right? We've got all these universities, a bunch of really creative students, lots of entrepreneurial focused people, and community of individuals and homeowners who are interested in adopting and trying out new technology. So I think there could be some, I'm happy to think more about this and kind of work on it, but something in there around how do we pull all 3 of those pieces together and actually create a little bit of a test bed for some of these new technologies, especially, anything with the AI buzzword that folks are looking to trial and test to get out there.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously, I do think that for CAPA, just our department, as we get closer and closer to doing what's needed on the municipal operations side, we want to do much more at a much larger scale for the rest of the city. So absolutely, we need to do that, and I'd love to come up with some creative ways to basically buy things better by buying things together. Where the city is not is acting as a convener more than here's a program that we're paying for and running, and and maybe that's also necessary. But again, when you're thinking about like clean tech incubation, like we should be working with the various offices in the city that are about economic development to try to find those things. And again, the city can be a convener. And I point at Carolyn because she's done a lot of this, particularly with parcels of land that can put can put uses into tight spaces and so forth. So yeah, I think that's both a good agenda for NESC and for us to kind of over this year, kind of think creatively about how do we actually execute this, given that we're always going to be budget constrained for like city expenditures. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
I was thinking I did want to touch on the landscaping piece of this and the leaf blowers and the things like that. And so what I was thinking is, and I know I don't know how feasible it is or what kind of grants are out there in terms of equity. But I think I've heard a lot of people saying, well, this would be unfair to do to landscapers who, um, are usually of, specific demographics or whatever, or lower income or just blue collar people. But I do think that there was some funding or there could be some grants somehow that could help small businesses with that. Thanks.
I think this is another one where, again, city as a convener, we have a pretty good relationship with National Grid. They kind of take care of us on some levels. There are grants and big rebates for commercial landscaping equipment, that's, electric landscaping equipment. I have one example just because I helped.
Solar mower.
Was that?
Sorry, the robot mower.
And I mean, honestly, that's certainly a solution that, I mean, Katie can tell you all about that, that the city should be pursuing in where you have defined things. But to the degree that you're trying to help a landscaping company replace their equipment, there are programs that basically have no cash up front. So there are ways, and maybe our role could be. So I know that there are certainly people who have reached out to city councilors saying we would like an ordinance banning gas-powered landscape equipment. And a personal view about legislation is that it should always come with, if you're going to make a stick, you should be building a good carrot that you provide at the same time. And so if that's our role, is to find those programs and make it easier for people to enroll, like handhold them or something. Or again, where the number of landscaping companies is not large, so you can find all of them, right?
I mean, there's some interesting interactions there with also just sort of like what are our cultural expectations of what does the lawn look like. And I mean, my first couple of months in Northampton, I was living in a rented condo, and if I forgot to close the windows overnight Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., boom, the commercial mower and dust everywhere. And is the equipment people are using, but also are we just doing too much of this work? But I think if you look at communities that have done these things, there's often a long phase in. I mean, maybe they start with a sale ban or something. That's a little hard to do locally versus on a state level. But, there are things to look at very carefully, what the transition is, what the impacts are. Is it someone who owns a landscaping company with 3 people? Is it an individual who's basically freelance? Is it my neighbor who, the minute this lands, he's going to be knocking on my door? You're banning my leaf blower that my leaf wife just bought me for Christmas. I mean, these are complicated questions, and I think it's a discussion we should be having as a city. But it is very much a discussion.
Well, we could mention the event. So we are cooperating with a state procurement authority to try to have an event that would showcase some of this equipment, but we don't have a date or a location for that yet. So we can hold off.
Also, I would just add, I think it's my personal and maybe professional opinion that we should be getting our own house straight before we create regulations that impose something on the public. And so, maybe as part of the conversation is, how do we get to the point where the city is not using this equipment? And that's demonstrative, but it's also saying, okay, we believe in this stuff and we're doing it too.
We do have Richard Parasolidi and Katie Deppen in this meeting, who might be able to give us an idea of how do we make that transition as a city, right? Both of you control basically what the city does in this area. Yeah, kind of what would it take? And are there aspects of it that NESC could help with? Not to put you on the spot.
Thank you, Ben, as always. Uh, I think that I agree with Carolyn's statement. I think that would be a place to start. I think we probably need to do some sort of a citywide assessment of what we actually, what cultural practices we're using, where they are, what is the level of use of the facility. There's a whole bunch of different matrices that are here that we would have to probably analyze and then sort of come back and take a look at what is possible. Because there definitely is a financial cost to potentially phasing out carbon equipment, gasoline and diesel equipment. And there's definitely some services where you will not be able to probably do it. But I think on the smaller scale, like if you can start with actually, like at Bridge Street Cemetery, for example, that's where we use all electric equipment there. And that's been successful in but that's in one contained location. And it's been kind of an ongoing experiment for the last 4 years. So it's worked well. So it's definitely a conversation that should be had, but I think we need to sort of take a step back and look at everything that we're doing, why we're doing it, where we're doing it, what's the required use of the facilities, and go from there. And see if there are alternatives possible. Investigate that.
Because I think just with the city, I would echo what Chris said about our culture in general. Like, better than a transition to an electric equipment is to no equipment, or to some sort of cultural practice that has an infrequent, so where that's possible, taking that inventory you're describing, that just makes sense to me.
Yeah, if just jump back in. I mean, often, when you talk about transitioning to electric, we're going to call it lawn care equipment, even though that's not what we're talking about. But you talk about working that into the existing equipment replacement cycle, so it's a phased transition. But yeah, some things can't be done. I mean, when there was the brush fire up at Fitzgerald Lake, it turns out the way you attack a brush fire is with like industrial grade leaf blowers. And that was surprising, but that's what you do. So there are situations where things still make sense.
We can't hear you, Ben.
Whoops, sorry. Usually we exhaust contributions from the commission before we go to the public, so I just want to quickly ask if there's anyone else on the commission before I go to the public. One more from Chris.
I kind of put this together as a tiny bit more of an intro, but I'll try to be quick. So my name is Chris Stratton. I'm the newly elected Ward 6 councilor. My professional career has involved a lot of electronic and software work, particularly things like Internet of Things gadgets and radio-based sensor networks. But often what I really ended up doing was being the person who would jump on the part of a problem that wasn't being solved and kind of learn about the systems that interacted with that to the degree I needed to in order to be able to fix an issue. Before I get into specific topics, I should just state for the record that I have a family member who's working on sustainability over at Smith College. And I think that's probably okay as long as, presentations from Smith people are just about sharing their experiences. But if we were ever to really talk about a joint project between the city and the college, I might have to recuse from that. But I get the sense that's not too likely in the near term. I put together a few just kind of laundry list issues that I thought might be interesting, but where they fall in terms of what's already been happened. So one of the things is to make sure we're looking at external carbon consequences, and I think this already came up. And to some ways, the effectively all electric building code is an example. But the external consequences of our policies, not just our own operations. So, the school buildings are our biggest internal operation, but we currently have fairly limited school bus service, which means there's notable external carbon in private car trips bringing kids to school, either driving themselves or parent drop-off. And I'd kind of be curious to do the math of what expanded bus service might accomplish on a climate front, to say nothing of, family convenience, road congestion, and traffic safety. I haven't done the math yet, but I'm curious. Also kind of interested in looking at our policy for renewable energy credits, and this can be a challenging issue. We have a choice of selling them when we do a solar project, and that makes the financial picture better. But if we do that, most carbon accounting standards, then we can't really say that we're running our own facility on green energy. We sold those, the virtue of those kilowatts to probably to National Grid for their renewable portfolio standard, which I know, the bill to chop those came up, and let's hope that at least gets cut from that, so that we, continue marching forward on our renewable portfolio standards. Also kind of interested, we effectively mandate heat pumps now. It's the only sort of affordable heating system you're allowed to have. But they work a lot better paired with solar. And I'm curious if we are encouraging solar friendly roof lines in, our building standards. And I know people can't always afford solar up front. I mean, I have a roof that'd be great for solar, and I haven't been able to afford to do it yet. But that when we look at building designs, are we thinking about, how well-oriented panels could you get on that roof? And maybe that is something that is a virtue we want to encourage. Also have to apologize that I'd previously scheduled office hours up in Florence for my constituents. So at some point, I'm going to have to switch to my phone and catch the rest of the meeting remotely. But really interested in hearing what others are planning to work on.
Thanks. So Angie, I'd love to hear from you, and then depending on how that goes, then we'll go to the room.
Yeah, I can be brief, and I just wanted to say hello and welcome to our new counselors. I'm very excited that we have some new support here in our group, and it's great that you guys have committed to this commission. So I think the two things that I wanted to focus on, and one actually was in response to the public comment about food waste. I do agree organics ban is something that I know the state is looking at meeting their 2030 targets a little bit more aggressively by considering a zero tolerance ban, I believe by 2028. So that's just a couple years away. So similar to what Carolyn Mish had suggested in terms of cleaning up our own house first, maybe there's more programming we can do in the cafeterias across the school systems. Smith Voc, I don't know what they do or if they compost now, but they have a whole culinary arts vocation. So I'm assuming that there's a lot of food scraps, at least, if not post-consumer food waste. But I would think that it could be a nice initiative or some sort of a thing to explore with our commission on how we could not only facilitate some sort of like best practice or solutions for that. I think the state also, and I think nationally we figured out there's a little bit more anaerobic digestion infrastructure, and from a greenhouse gas perspective, that's better than composting in like a windrow. So maybe thinking about some of these facilities that do depacking that can, take some waste that might not be perfect. I can assume a school cafeteria situation, you're not going to get a perfect collection for post-consumer. So maybe just helping to facilitate what type of vendors and end users for the material and how to help kind of programatize it at the kind of customer level, like people in the system. And then maybe to take that even further, I'm thinking a little bit about food recovery too, and how we can ensure that we're, supporting any kind of practices for that. I'm sure that has to go through public health kind of standards as well, but just wondering if that could be a part of what we think about when we think about food waste diversion from the landfill. And then the only other thing, and I don't know if the commission would agree this is a part of our priority area, but given that the resiliency hub is kind of on pause just based on capital project costs and a physical space might not be happening, I'm just wondering what kind of things we can do to still kind of actualize some programming or whatever work we might be able to do to help identify new spaces. Or I think I had mentioned in a previous meeting the idea of putting it in smattering it across a variety of spaces rather than one centralized space. So I do think in all of our best laid plans for future impacts, we also have immediate needs that will probably come when we least expect it or don't want it. So I think a lot about resiliency and just adaptation that maybe our commission can think on too. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thanks, Angie.
You're welcome.
So unless we have people one more from Chris.
Just a quick question. I mean, the hub sort of was a hybrid concept. Part of it was, shall we say, routine services for the disadvantaged, and part of it was sort of emergency preparedness. And which aspect of that were you talking about, or both?
Yeah, both. I feel like I think they go hand in hand, and I'm more of a proponent of reducing silos because they have co-benefits when you do one for the other. So yeah, both.
And were you thinking, what do I want to say, distribute a little bit by function, or more like kind of neighborhood centers?
I don't know. I think that was just something that I wanted to bring up for the commission to talk about in the future. Yeah, and maybe involve more of the folks who have been a part of the conversations prior to now. I haven't been, so I actually don't know to what extent those designs have been taken. So yeah, I think that could all be really interesting to talk about.
Great.
One more.
I'll just throw one more in there. EV chargers. Yes, and so it's been amazing to drive all the way over to East Hampton to do my grocery shopping and do everything I need to do at River Valley. But and I think people who frequent River Valley are going to be people who are using EV chargers. And for example, maybe some wayward EV chargers, such as down on Meadow Street over by Grow Food Northampton, or just more EV chargers. Because what I've noticed is it becomes very difficult to reliably go anywhere when these chargers are frequently breaking down, or yeah.
So I can tell you that is a top priority for us and has been. And we've been going through a process to try and get it for free. and it has it's been a real pain. So we did not get them for free as fast as we thought we would, and we actually just came off of a meeting with National Grid where they've got a new program, and we're going to it's basically 2026 is the year to be getting level 2 public chargers. So everywhere we can think to do it, we're going to try and do it. And especially, yes, we know that the public, the downtown chargers have had all sorts of inconsistencies, and we've not gotten enough funds from our charging to charge approach to be able to just simply replace them. So that's why we kept on hoping that we'd be getting EVIP, which is basically money from the Volkswagen settlement, to replace them with, quite frankly, better chargers. Like, part of the problem is that the company that we started with is not fun to work with, and doesn't give you much, and it's expensive. So we've already made some progress, and so because the other thing that's happening is we are pretty rapidly increasing the city's EV fleet, and they've been using public chargers, we're therefore pushing out the public. So with central services and parking help, we've installed a municipal only pair of EV chargers in the Roundhouse lot that takes some of the pressure off, and we're going to do a lot more of them. Yeah, that is something we're definitely doing. Hopefully this time we get the money faster. So before I go to Zoom, do we have anyone? Yeah, we thought we'd hear from the public.
Hi, Alex Bowman, Market Street. I would really love to see the committee focus on expanding the All Ages and Abilities Network for Northampton. We know that people that want to take alternative methods of transportation, specifically young folks and old folks, they make up only about 7% of the population right now, unless it's an all ages and abilities network. Once you increase your network so it's low stress for all ages and ability, you get to about 60% of the population. So that's 7 times as many people if we focus on increasing or improving our infrastructure for those folks. So this is an environmental issue. According to the sustainability plan, Northampton sustainability plan, 26% of on-road transport, 26% of greenhouse gas emissions come from on-road transport. Massachusetts just said that transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Massachusetts. There's other reasons to do this as well, community and social reasons where you can stop and meet someone on the path and talk to them, health reasons, equity reasons. And so we're also seeing a lot of success by other cities doing this, specifically Amsterdam, who has been known to be doing this for decades, and they have a huge number of people that are using bicycles to get everywhere. And even though you think that, well, everyone in Amsterdam is taking a bicycle, it is making up only about 30 to 40% of trips, but that is a huge amount of trips. And you can see it in there, whenever you hear about Amsterdam and the rest of the Netherlands. Another great city that has been doing this has been Minneapolis, which is another cold weather city, who's been focusing on creating those low stress bike networks. So buffered lanes, fast moving cars not next to bicyclists. So I know the sustainability plan already has a lot of this great stuff in it, but I really think we need to start focusing more on it. And another important thing is that 67% of Northampton adults live in a 4.5 square mile area near downtown, from Look Park to Bridge Road, to the Mill River, down towards Pomeroy Terrace and up on Bridge Street. So 67% of the population makes on a mostly flat area with a great skeleton. We just need to connect homes to places where people need to go. So having a focus on this would be incredibly useful by Kappa.
Thanks. Any discussion on that topic from the commission? Okay, Gavin on Zoom.
Hi, I'm Gavin Grant on Prospect Avenue. Delighted to have all the new members and see the enthusiasm here. Delighted that one of the first comments was about gas-powered leaf blowers and lawnmowers. I am hoping that since the Ordinance Committee already provided an ordinance from last year in their 5-year review, they provided an ordinance to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. I'm hoping the city will put it into place. I do not think you should stop and wait for the city departments to put it into place. I think that is a way for this to disappear into the weeds, as it were. California in 2021 put a statewide ban on gas-powered leaf blowers and weed whackers, which started 2 years ago. And I feel if we're 2 years behind California, we should be able to do this as a small city. A secondary pollution windmill that I like to tilt at is, I think, out with this committee, but I would love for other people to contact the state about this. We have an airport here, so we are one of the towns that for 50 years has had leaded air fuel pollution dropping down on us every day. They've had a cutout for the same reason as the gas-powered lawnmowers. It's been too expensive for the industry to ever change over. It will always be too expensive for the industry to change over. They will never change unless small cities, big cities, individuals and committees such as yourself stand up and stop them. And I realized that this is an actual windmill that we may never be able to tilt at, but I would appreciate any help as I write to the people every year at the state and ask them to put it into to ban it. But really, back to gas-powered leaf blowers, weed whackers, and lawn mowers. All of them, if we can put them in, if we can ban them, it's a tiny change. We can we can use mass save, and it will be a big change for the whole city because we are all paying the pollution, the air pollution and noise pollution costs at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any other contributions to this discussion, or should we close the discussion and say that we've got a lot of ideas to work on? Gwen. Oh, you're saying that was an agreement? Okay. Well, oh, Eric, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on Gavin's thing. I think Angie has been spearheading the pollinator subcommittee, and I know that we've had discussions about how it is we translate an approach to the encouraging the non-manicured lawn and the impacts of that. And of course, to have a manicured lawn, you need equipment to prune it, whether it's a weed whacker or a lawnmower, and you need to blow waste away. One thing that might be interesting, because we haven't really talked about stormwater and the stormwater charges, but it would be good. It would be interesting for me to understand, do we have, and I should probably know this because I used to do this for a living, but do we have an understanding about the correlation between, these highly manicured lawns and the relationship between these infiltrative surfaces in different scenarios? So, if people have a beautiful wildflower front yard, does that provide a different level of infiltration than a manicured lawn? And if so, then we can monetize the value of a transformation of that approach by providing incentives vis-a-vis the stormwater surcharge that people pay. If you look at your bill, you'll notice a charge, and it's not insubstantial, and it's not even related to rain or anything like that. It's simply a meter count on your water meter. So it would be interesting to have in order to move in a direction where we have, first of all the benefits of having a insect-friendly, pesticide-limited environment. We also have something that's, specifically related to something that comes out of people's pockets, which is the stormwater. And obviously, if you don't have a manicured lawn, you don't need to run your 17 horsepower lawnmower over it every week or two. So I would love to put that on the agenda to try and figure out how we can sort of tie all those wonderful aspects of looking at a different landscaping approach. I think it could sort of kill a bunch of birds with one stone, if you will. So
that's a really interesting problem. So one thing is there are issues with just the whole idea of a fee for something that's not a directly provided service, right? So that's one issue. Just kind of with the stormwater charge. Then there's the question of, are we actually getting value if you're absorbing water in a place that happens to not be topographically important for more stormwater flow, that has less value than if you're absorbing water in a place where it actually has where it's actually going to make a really big difference. And, so like, would you want to encourage more in one place than another because of topography? The general rule is you're right. The manicured lawns have shallower roots, and so they tend to absorb less. We got a really nice report from some Smith College students uh, about a year ago ish, on this, and they came up with a bunch of kind of a menu of options to increase infiltration while also increasing biodiversity and so forth. Um, so all of those I think are really important. And we have this issue that you have a stormwater facility that is an enterprise that needs to pay for its operations. So pretty complex thicket you want us to wade into.
Yep, that's my job to do that.
So just so one of the things that, and I'm sorry I'm cutting Gwen off, but I will in a minute. But the stormwater is actually not based on your water bill. That's the sewer that is a proportion to your water bill. The stormwater is based on a lot size and, in theory, the impervious fraction, but we don't actually look at your lot. It's based on an average of all similar lots. So in fact, there isn't really an incentive to do better. We only tend to look at that a bigger lot and somebody like applies for consideration. And I think that's a bookkeeping motivation. It is something to look at. If people were doing better, theoretically, the cost of the stormwater system might decrease. The other way of looking at it is there's various property tax credits the state could, I'm sorry, the state would let the city adopt. If we do that, the overall tax roll decreases, so then the tax rate actually goes up slightly. So it could be that if people were, getting a discount, the people who weren't doing the things would be getting a slight increase. And I'm sure my phone will be ringing off the hook for having just said that, because man, people want to talk about the stormwater fee. And it is a topic worthy of discussion.
So I will just speak from of course an equity standpoint, but when I first moved to Northampton, I lived in a property that had flooding issues. And I knew that nobody was coming with many millions of dollars to fix these issues. And so I decided to make an attempt to resolve it myself. And so what I did was I chose plants that would be taking up heavy metals and remediating the soil, that would take up a lot of water, with a blend of native plants that liked water and sun, and it was extremely impactful. And as soon as those plants were removed, I had the flooding problem again. So I think what I'm thinking is I really love that you guys are thinking about this, because there's a couple of different ways to tackle different issues at the same time. And so maybe just on a small scale somehow. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, is there any more discussion on this topic, or we can move to the next agenda item if people are satisfied? And obviously, this is not the end of the discussion, but it did prime us with a bunch of things to hopefully get onto the agenda as during this year. So it's not just purely reactive to things we've been confronting the week before. Eric.
Yeah, Ben, I just want to ask the staff to spend a little time with the minutes, so that this actually maybe make it a separate document from the minutes that lays it out, so that it's something we can put on the website that says, look, here's what the commission is going to be thinking about, and start fleshing out what might be involved and when we would start work on all of these specific topics. But I think we need a working document to manage this and make it come true. Thank you.
I would just add, I don't think it's ready to be put out on the website yet. I think this is a collection of ideas, and then the committee needs to decide what's the prioritization or if it makes sense to address these. So maybe 2 steps down the way.
Okay, that's a good point.
And like, I don't think there's any voting. It's just kind of, we've had a collection of ideas and maybe we'll come back with, okay, so now how to prioritize, but I mean, there's a bunch for us to think about. So I've got on the agenda some updates. I'm going to try to do them as fast as possible. As among the important things that this commission did last year was vote to recommend that we focus on the geothermal project at the high school, and so, we actually are able to follow that. So we are doing a few things. We are applying for a Green School Works grant and a bunch of recoverable grant funding, with the idea that even though we have authorization, to the city to borrow money for the high school project, and short-term and long-term bonding, and the idea to uh, use the short-term bonding as the interim until the tax credit comes in and all that stuff, we're going to try and shrink that as much as possible by getting as much as we can from state sources, which are not borrowing, and therefore increase our investment tax credit. So that's something Gabi and I are working on right now. We had a good meeting again with our friends at National Grid who are helping us with this grant. So that's what we're working on now. We are coordinating with the schools on logistics, because if everything goes according to plan, we will be starting to do our test well this spring and constructing over the summer. That's going to probably mean moving summer school to different locations. All of that discussion is happening this week with the school department to kind of work out all the logistics. Parking is going to be the big logistical problem at the high school while construction is happening. We're going to try and keep as much open as possible, but it's never going to be more than 2/3 of the existing parking that will be available during construction. So any ideas anyone has about clever ways that we can find temporary parking, particularly for faculty and staff, that would ease a burden. And we are going to be using it. We've kind of figured out the procurement process. It's using Chapter 25A, Section 11, which means that we're going through Mass DOER, who kind of controls Chapter 25A procurements, but that will allow us to do a turnkey procurement so that we don't get into the kind of messes that happen when you have designers and constructors and they're not coordinating, and then we'll be able to get a guarantee, a performance guarantee as well. So that's all in the works, and we should probably have a contract by March, but it takes a bit of time to go through the DOER process. That's the update on the high school. I guess any questions?
I think that's really great. But I was just thinking, I don't know if this conversation has already happened in terms of alternate parking, but I mean, Cooley Dickinson is quite large. I don't know if their parking can accommodate the amount of the 2/3 of how many parking spaces we have at the high school, but that's somewhat in proximity. And at the very least, someone could hop on the R42 if they time it right and just not even have to walk that 3 blocks or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely thought about Cooley Dick, and they've got this lower parking lot that's kind of, it's
Yep.
there. I think it may be pretty well filled.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know.
And so the other thing, and this kind of actually goes to what Alex Bowman brought up, which is if we can have non-car transportation to the high school, basically have fewer people demanding parking, we may be able to do better with parking. Actually, I guess Chris Stratton also brought up the idea of increased busing. I don't think we're going to be able to actually accomplish that in this amount of time. Yes.
Interesting that you charge for bus.
I know.
There's no charge.
Yeah.
That should change.
Couldn't hear the comment.
I'm going to repeat the comment because he was at the back of the room. He pointed out that we charge to ride the bus, but we don't charge to park. And I would say we also don't charge to clog up the roadway while you're dropping your kid off instead of getting your kid on the bus or having them, God forbid, walk. So
I think that's the bigger issue rather than adding number of buses. That's not the issue. I think the issue is the school committee voted for a fee many years ago to try to cover the budget, and people can't pay the fee or don't want to. Yeah.
So,
but going back to the school parking thing, I'm sorry if I missed this. Are both lots going to be punched for holes, or can't you just move the parking down to the stadium?
That is part of the discussion that I'm going to be having with them. It should accommodate a lot of the parking. I've been told by Tammy that there's a reason that might not work, but I haven't understood why. So, I will report back to you when we get a logistical solution. But that's our big kind of internal. The city has to solve this problem as opposed to I can solve it with money and contracts. And I guess Gabi can update us on PV projects unless someone has more geothermal comments. Okay, Gabi.
Okay. So yeah, I'll try to make it quick. So we are trying to add 120 kilowatts AC to the roof of Ryan Road Elementary School. The update is basically we already have a signed contract. Select Energy as a contractor we're working with, they already submitted our application to interconnect. And as of now, we just shared the design plans of the roof and the building. So we are going to try to schedule their site visit, and that should be happening very shortly. And then for Jackson Street Elementary School, we are trying to add 250 kilowatts. It's going to be a canopy over the parking lot. And we are a little bit behind with them. So we have not received the contract yet. Our lawyers are still kind of hashing it out. But that should be within a week, I think that should happen. And they did already submit the interconnection application. So yeah, so that is the update. Any questions?
Well, I'll add a little tiny bit of color, if you will, which is, so if you were following this at City Council, we were down to the wire. We were trying to get in before the end of the year so as to get the tax credit without being restrained as to which types of PV modules we could get. We were delayed, and that delay meant that literally on New Year's Eve, I was trying to get their lawyer, who was naturally on vacation, to respond to our lawyer's detailed, changes to the contract. And the mayor is sitting there checking her email to see if there was going to be a DocuSign to sign. We did not make that deadline, which means that the project may either cost more or be designed differently because we're going to have to use different modules in order to get the full tax credit. So we missed that deadline. And we were working really, really hard. But every minute of delay was a problem. And so we actually have held off on creating the final contract because part of what this visit is to do is to redesign the system to come up with a new price for the system with a new size to the system, like to basically use modules that qualify. We think that it's going to be the same price and roughly the same size, and we may actually get a larger tax credit to the degree that it's U.S. manufactured panels, but we may have to pay a bit more upfront to get there. So, so there's a bunch of stuff moving, but we're working on it. The good thing about the PPA, which is the solar canopy at Jackson Street School, is that because Select owns and operates the entire facility and we're just paying for the electricity, they were able to get in on their own under the deadline, secure the less expensive panels, which keeps our PPA rate lower. And now it's just down to our lawyers and their lawyers agreeing on some final details. And then everything should move forward. Sorry, so that was it, the extra color. Any comments or?
Yeah. So one of my questions about the Jackson Street project was with that canopy, if there was a way to tie in EV chargers to the canopy, like.
Well, we wouldn't tie them directly. So there's two reasons why that's something I would look at later. One is to get the free EV chargers, it has to be available to the general public, and it's not clear that you would want the general public parking on a school parking lot to go charge up. So that's one of the challenges. That doesn't mean that you couldn't decide that you wanted to get EV chargers and you wanted, say, the teachers to be able to charge there. They still would not actually be tied directly to the PV. They'd be running through the same meter at the school and running back out. So it would be a separate project. But I have been in, so there's two things that are under discussion once we get to actual construction documents. Tony, the facilities directors for the schools, wants to take the opportunity, if possible, to mill and overlay the parking lot, basically get new paving for the parking while that work is done. So he'd like to try to integrate that either as a separate contract that's coordinated. So he's going to work on that. The other thing is once you're trenching for conduit, we're going to want to lay additional conduit in place so that we can pull wires at a later date and do whatever EV chargers we want. That's all in design, and against when you're trenching, it's practically free to add more conduit. But yeah, good thing to be thinking about.
Can I add a quick thing with the EVP or EMVIP or whatever it is, the EVIP, yes, the fleet mass program. I think actually you can limit the hours because we looked into this for Mount Holyoke. It has to be open to the public, but I think you can limit how many hours it is restricted. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So just if that changes things for the school. So they could limit it during school hours, let's say, to just, visitors and staff of the school, and then you could have it be available to the public overnight, things like that.
Okay, yeah, I will ask.
All right, so last meeting, we brought up the need to ask for funds to extend our online monitoring platforms for the solar at Smith Folk and James House. And it turns out that we do not need that now, so that's great. It's a long story, but basically our online monitoring platform still works, and I'm able to view. I just checked on all of our PV, and they're all working great except for Smith Folk. There are some issues basically the inverter will not work all the time, every day, or the meter will not work. So there is an issue, and we can discuss how we want to deal with that. Ben and I had talked a little bit about it, and maybe this is, something that Smith Volk should be more involved with, but we can discuss that. So, yeah.
So before we move to department head reports, does anyone have any thoughts on that subject? Okay. In that case, let's move to department head reports. And Carolyn, do you have anything you want to share?
Not really. I mean, there's some maybe ancillary updates. We're looking at a couple of things. One is for the Valley Bike Share Program. We've applied for grants for support from MassDOT through the transportation. There was a bill that was passed that allocated funding for the from the Fair Share Amendment, which was the millionaire's tax. So we're hoping to be successful, that will then sort of create a longer term sustained support for the system, which will then allow us to expand and really bolster, ridership and work more with getting more people to understand the system. So fingers crossed, won't know for another couple of weeks whether that's, going to happen, but I have to remain optimistic. And then the only other thing really is, related to housing. We've been working with the planning board on some modifications to the zoning to sort of continue to remove barriers for housing, particularly in the urban districts. So that's about it.
Great. Rich, do you have anything that you want to share?
Nothing specific other than obviously this is the for the outdoor construction season. This is the middle of the winter, so there's really no construction happening outdoors. We're spending time reviewing proposed projects for the calendar year of 26. Implement how we're going to be implementing them in what process they are in the design. So that's what we're up to at the moment. Thank you.
Louis, do you have anything?
Couple of things. One thing for Councilor Stratton, the building code requires solar spaces and pre-wiring and structural accommodations for solar panels on a roof for all new residential construction and up to and including apartment buildings. Second thing is that if there were questions like that were going to come to a meeting, I would be happy to put some time and energy into a short answer. I did forward to Gabby an email from Mass Save's training sessions, but they get pretty dense pretty quickly too. But if there were specific sorts of questions like what happens about solar requirements for new construction, if I knew ahead of time, I could put together a few minutes of discussion.
Just to clarify,
We got a comment in the room.
I understood from Chris was that there's a difference between facing your roof south. It's on. If you're facing your roof south versus if you're facing your roof west and east, there would be a different benefit to solar if you do that. I think that's what he was speaking about, is designing your buildings based on the direction that it's facing.
Yeah, roof area, multiple roof lines, et cetera. Not just the structural or the wiring part, though that's important too. So, that'd be great to talk about in the future.
Although a neat thing that has developed is that south-facing roof concept, as PV gets cheaper and as the grid's demands get more, influenced by behind the meter solar, that actually matters less and less.
It's
and you
not all
actually
those afternoon hours. Yes.
it's actually beneficial to kind of get your west-facing PV to closer align with peaks on the grid. So that's one thing that's kind of like changed over time is that original like optimized for as much winter gain. It's just like it spreads and we get more everywhere. So that's a cool thing, and we can use it. Katie, do you have anything you want to share?
Sure. I mean, I'll tail off of kind of what Rich was mentioning. We're in the process right now of basically trying to, plan schedules contingent on what project funding is to come, but kind of be proactive in that aspect of what anticipation. More specifically in evaluating our buildings and kind of building a more like in-depth kind of strategic plan for not just, renovations, but also just maintenance. Um, we're still in the process of a project we have going on at Forbes Library. I think all of you guys are aware where we're renovating the children's department, but also putting in a reversible chiller. So we've been focusing more on renovations in regards to more of the aesthetics. We'll be moving basically towards the reversible chiller once we make our transition from heating to cooling season. And then, contingent to, as I mentioned earlier, we have been working with CAPA as well to review the feasibility of solar on top of the city hall roof, if that roof is to be funded for replacement. So those are kind of some updates. We've got a bunch of other projects going on, but those are just a few.
Cool. Thanks, Katie. Trying to think if I should bother with any updates, or did I give you enough with the geothermal thing? I probably did. Unless there are further comments, I would take a motion to adjourn if anyone wanted to offer one.
Move to adjourn.
1 second.
I'll second.
Double second. Okay, so I'll call the roll. Eric Winkler.
Approve.
Chris Stratton.
Approve.
Angie Gregory.
Approve.
Louis Hasbrook.
Approve.
Richard Parasolidi.
Approve.
Katie Deppen.
Approve.
Carolyn Mish.
Yes.
Gwen Navad.
Approve.
Me, yes. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to coming back to all of these ideas again and again. Bye.